Welcome to my shop. Today's project is a quick one. We have an Intermatic spring-loaded fan timer for one of the bathrooms, and surrounding it is an oil rub bronze plate that goes around here, and there's two more switches to the side. And this white backing plate isn't cutting it. And the only other color available is almond, but it's still not cutting it. It just looks like it doesn't live there. So being we live in a fairly old house, 1908, I wanted something a little more special. I don't think they had Intermatic fans back then, but we want to make it look like it blends in as well as possible. So I've taken some brass bar stock. It's fairly thick stuff. It's actually thicker than this plate, but it's all I had, and it works. And I drilled the hole in the center to match the hole for the knob. There's a knob shaft that comes through, and one of those little, kind of like a half nut that goes on that holds this in place. And then I took this end mill, and I milled that out down 1/16 of an inch. That gives that little half nut a place to live so that it doesn't interfere with the knob function. Now that's basically just copying the design here. You can see there's a recess there. Now my next step, there's a ridge. You can just see it there, right where the mill sort of removed material, but there's a ridge sticking up. So I need to sand that down. Once I get that sanded, I'm going to put this back in here, and I'm going to use a Kratex rod, and I'm going to machine turn this finish. And then at the very end, I'll stamp some of the critical numbers and lettering. I may not even stamp a lot of things. I want simplicity. And I'll give you a little secret. My first round, the machine turning was gorgeous. It was 1/4 inch, so overlapped you see 1/8 of an inch reveal, and it was wonderful. But I stamped it and I made an absolute mess of it. So it just wasn't good, and I can do better. So I'm going to do better. So this one will be very simple. There'll be maybe a hash mark for off, and then hashes for 5, 10. I might indicate 20 just so you have a reference, 30, and then on will just be where it is. I'm not going to overcomplicate this one. I want to leave it simple, and I want to have nice clear letter stamps on here. So let's see what we can do. I need to figure out how to sand this. If I go here and I buzz it on here, I might get that to work, but I don't want to create an uneven surface. So I think what I want to do is use a sanding block and see if I can knock that edge down by hand, because the other sander might create an uneven surface, and when I go to machine turn it, it might leave dips and divots that I don't want in there. So let's give the hand block a chance. Why don't you stand where I'm at? There. But I can still feel that burr. If that burr hits the Kratex rod, it'll tear it to pieces, and it'll interrupt the nice flow of the machine or engine turning process. Oh, we're getting there. You can see where it's almost blended in. Here's my small mandrel for the Kratex material. This is basically an abrasive impregnated rubber, kind of a real hard rubber. Like you could, if you really work at it, you could probably leave a dent with your fingernail. And they make different levels. So there is coarse, medium, fine, extra fine. For brass, a medium works well. For steel, you probably want something like coarse, because then you don't have to spend so long working on it. The first one I made was with this. And the way that you do this, if you haven't seen my other videos, is you start, let's do it with the big one so it's easier to see. You start halfway on it, like that. And you go down, and you go half the distance of that diameter. So let's say this is 3/4 inch. You go 3/8 of an inch, do the next one, march down, and then you go half the diameter this way, and then you can choose to just overlap exactly or offset by 1/4 of the diameter so that you get different patterns. It's up to you how you do it, but for my case, I'll probably just keep them straight across, and I'll just make those nice little fish scale looking things. And so we want to decide what scale is appropriate. This takes forever. It looks really cool, but you're moving it 1/8 of an inch every time, and then you get 1/8 of an inch this way, and you do another pass. It's probably a good half an hour for me to do one of these. And when I looked at it, the pattern seemed a little bit closed. So we've got a couple options. We could do that, but open the pattern up. And so you get these really interesting shapes where they overlap. Or we could try a bigger one, because again, you're only going to see the fish scale look of half of the diameter both directions. So it'll be sort of like a quarter of a pie-shaped thing that you're going to see. So I'd like to try this one, because we have nothing to lose. If we don't like it, I can scuff it up with the sandpaper and we can start all over again. And this won't take long. So let's get you set up on the Milski. I just want to explain this mandrel that I made. I knew the diameter of the Kratex rod I wanted to clamp, so I chucked this piece of steel into my lathe. I used the tailstock and drilled out that diameter here. I used my bandsaw to make a slit so that I could put a clamp on this. And then I also turned down this so that I could chuck it, or I could put it in a collet or do whatever, because the original stock was this wide. And then what I found though is that this was full diameter all the way out, and it was too hard to compress with this clamp because the metal was so rigid. So I turned this down so it's a little thinner, and that's why you see the step here. That works real well. So for today, let's do the collet, because I like how collets hold things. I think I want this fairly close. All I have to do is go down just a little bit and touch off. So let's do that. Let's adjust the column. This is a mill drill made by Jet in the 70s, I think. The column is this piece here. And then, of course, we've got the motor in this head here. And this goes up and down with a hand crank. I have to loosen these clamps in order to move that column, because when you're machining, you want rigidity in everything. You want everything tightly clamped, so because if it wiggles even a little bit, the cutting tool can chatter or you can get inaccuracies. So we're going to make our adjustment. We're going to crank this down, and you'll see the column move down. Well, let's get our work back under it. Then we only have to move this just a little bit, and it's right there. We can even do a little more. Now, we don't want this column to move, because with it loose, see what can happen? You don't want that when you're trying to do precision overlaps or machining work or anything like that. So we need to cinch these back up, and that's just a big clamp around the column. If I loosen these, I can engage this hand wheel, which is a worm drive that does the same thing as this, except it's a finer motion. And so, for example, when I did the depth on these, I had my micrometer set up. You can zero this out wherever you want zero. And then you crank this down until that milling end reaches the depth that you want. And that gives you somewhat accurate approach. It's a little bit tricky with a mill drill because this isn't quite as accurate. There's a little bit of slop in the threads. And so if you're doing something very precise, what you would want is a true milling machine, which is different than this. Instead of having a fixed table here, the milling machine has a knee. They call it a knee. It's basically a platform that can be raised and lowered with hand wheels like this to precise increments of like thousandths of an inch, just like this. And that gives you more flexibility. So let's say, for example, I wanted to come through and thread these, and I had a long setup with a tap. On a mill machine, I could just take the knee and go down, put the tool on, and then bring it back up to the correct height. On this machine, if I'm out of room on this quill, if this doesn't extend or retract far enough, I have to move this whole thing, and then I've lost my center. So there are tricks to picking that back up, but it adds additional steps and removes some of the accuracy in my work because I'm an amateur. Anyway, that aside, let's get back to it. I can also move this dial just like that, which is not supposed to happen. This collar will keep this from free spinning. I want this to be locked to the shaft so that when I move the shaft, I can count where I'm at. Got to figure out which way I'm moving. There it is. Okay, that's the point where it takes up. I'm going to turn it this way. That's going to pull this part toward me as I advance it. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I want it to overlap about halfway, which is right about there. Then the next thing I need to do is find my diameter here. Yeah, it's close enough to 3/4. Half of 3/4 is 3/8. Oh, we're getting close. 3/8, 0.375. So we're going to go 0.375. Okay, I found an easier way to do this. On the first one, I went 375 thousandths for each advance, which is kind of a pain on this dial. And this Kratex rod sort of blossoms out a little bit when you put pressure on it. So I went 400 thousandths, which is 4 complete turns on this dial, and I'm getting a really nice pattern. It's just as tight as the other one. So that makes the math a lot simpler. I can always return to 0 4 counts around and go much faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, down. 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 See how much faster that goes? And then come back. Come up to the 0, and then we'll go in. We'll do the same thing here. 4 complete turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. On the last one, I had too much detail. I tried to indicate off, and I put turn, and that was messy, and then I tried to do an arrow with a V, and that got messier. And pretty soon I had a bunch of stuff where I didn't want it. So it went from bad to worse, and the editor in my head said, just keep adding stuff, and that'll make it better. So what I'd like to do, last time I used these numbers, I think, and they're really little, and against the dazzling background you can't see them. Even when I used a little marker to color the letters in black behind it, you still couldn't see it. So I want to try something a little bit bigger. I have a variety of numbers here. Bigger. It's possible that all we need are hash marks to indicate what we want to do here. And I have to remember that the knob is just over 1 inch. So let's find something soft that we can use as our reference. I could use a washer, but it'll scratch the heck out of the surface. So I think our knob is about 1 1/8 inches. As long as we leave that in place when we stamp it, it will be well outside of those boundaries. If we screw this up, it's ruined again. So let's not screw it up. That's the whole key here. Don't screw up. It's naturally going to go to off. So I don't think we need to type those letters in. I can put a hash mark right at the top. I think O would be better. I'm going to need to hit this thing pretty hard to make it stick. We only get one shot at it, so there's the O. There's the O. So we need to turn past that. That's going to be our first hash mark. So let's just, there we are. We'll give that one an extra strike. There we go. Let's just mark out our major milestones here. So that's 5. 10 is about at the 3 o'clock position. So we can do that pretty easy. Make sure we're tangent here. We can do multiple strikes as long as we don't bounce the thing. There we go. 20 is about the 6:30 position. Nice. And then our last position's about the 10 o'clock position. It's a little trickery here. We have to crowd it in just a little bit because it'll get covered up by the faceplate. So let's do it right there. Okay. Let's see if we're feeling confident. We could put a little 20 on there. Square it up. These are always going to have a hand-stamped quality to them because it's very difficult without some kind of laser engraver or something to get these perfect. That is going to work just fine. Now what I can do now is I'll cover this with a clear paint to give it a little bit of a protective layer so it doesn't oxidize as quickly. And then I'll come back after the paint and I'll mark these up, and then I can wipe the surface clean without the paint getting lost in some of these grooves. All right, a little shaky, a little swirly. We're gonna just shoot a little bit of clear on these. I found that with flat parts, if you want to give them a real good coat of paint, it's best to lay them flat. If I hang these things up, I have two problems. I'll have a shadow from the little hangy thing that goes through the hole, and there's also a tendency for the paint to run, which is sometimes you don't have a choice, but in that case it's better to apply some lighter coats. But if you apply too light a coat, you don't actually get full coverage. So let's see what we can do here. I'm just going to hit them from the other side. There, that should be enough. And here's the finished product. These letters are a lot more clear and the hash marks are visible all the way around. Even from a standing position, you can kind of get the idea pretty quickly. So I'm going to consider that project finished, and I have a spare one for the upstairs. Well, thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe to support the channel and receive the latest and greatest updates.